Welcome to the second part on my lecture on audit. I covered SA 200 and 210 in the previous lecture. Now I'll be covering SA 220 and 230. So SA 220 is quality control. So let me just explain you in short. Do you understand what is an engagement partner? Engagement partner is a person who is not a part of the firm, that is someone else, that is a CA in full-time practice, etc., who is performing a review, right, of the procedures, the conclusions, the evidences, and whether the standards on auditing are being followed properly or not. So quality control is SA 220. I told you what is engagement partner. Now how to memorize this? Again, we'll use another mnemonic. Let's imagine there's a man, like a salesman, who's wearing a tie. Okay, TIE, tie, and he's sitting in an AC office. Okay, he's doing time pass. He's not doing his duty. So AC, tie, TIE, then AC, time pass, TP. Okay, then we have two concepts: engagement team, what I said for time pass, TP, engagement team, and P is engagement performance, right? So this is the mnemonic you require so far, and as we go ahead, I'll tell you the future mnemonic. So tie, T, are there any circumstances that lead to threats, right? And so T is covered. Then we come to I in tie. I means do they lead to breach of independence? So I. E, can you eliminate those threats to a reasonable level? Okay, is it possible or not? So we covered tie. So any circumstances which lead to threats, is there breach of independence, and is it possible to eliminate those threats to a reasonably low level? Okay. Now the salesman is wearing a tie. He's sitting in an AC office. So AC will this make him consider acceptance and continuance of client relationships, whether he should accept the engagement and whether he should continue with the engagement. So acceptance and continuance of client relationships. But what are the audit procedures he will perform thereof? So A is acceptance and C is continuance of client relationships. Okay, so he's wearing a tie, he's sitting in an AC office. Then the next part you will consider that he's doing time pass, he's not doing his work. So T is engagement team. Now the engagement team over here is the persons who are not a part of the firm. Like I mentioned, engagement partner is someone who's in full-time employment elsewhere. So is the engagement team doing its engagement review properly? That is, are they following the standards and regulations in this regard? Are they following the laws and regulations? So standards on auditing, laws and regulations. And is the audit report appropriate? So that is for the T in time pass, T, engagement team. Now the engagement partner. Now the engagement partner, there are two parts. One is direction, supervision and performance, and the other part is review. So direction, supervision and performance, again as per the standards on auditing and as per the laws and regulations. And is the audit report appropriate? And for review, you'll have to check whether the work is being reviewed properly by the engagement partner or the engagement team which has been appointed for this purpose. So how will it be reviewed? The reviewed means the conclusions which you have derived, they have to have sufficient appropriate audit evidence. All these words are directly from Surbhi Bansal. So if you read over there, these mnemonics will come very handy for you. I have made these mnemonics, they are not there in Bansal. Bansal just has the short explanation. So we did tie, we did AC, we did time pass, TP, all parts of the mnemonic. Now we go on to consultations. So the engagement partner, the quality control review has to check whether there are consultations within the firm, okay, between the partners, and the nature, timing and extent of conclusions. Are those conclusions accepted? If they are accepted, are they implemented? So again, consultations within the engagement team, between the partners, nature, timing and extent of conclusions. Are those conclusions accepted? Are those conclusions implemented? And then you evaluate significant matters, financial statements, whether the audit review should not be dated before completion of the audit report. Right, so first you date the audit review, then you complete the audit report. So it has to have a sequence. The date is very important. Now, for listed entities, you know what are listed entities, right, which are listed on the stock exchange. There are some additional factors you have to consider: independence and consultation. IC. So how do you memorize this? I see a listed company. I independence, C consultation. I see a listed company. Independence, consultations, and whether the quality control reviewer has been appointed. For listed entities, you need a quality control reviewer. Now, who is this quality control reviewer? He can be someone from within the firm as well, not like the engagement partner who necessarily has to be from outside the firm. Okay, now if there are differences of opinion, these differences of opinion will be resolved regarding the firm's policies and procedures for resolving such differences of opinion. And now we come to monitoring the result. So you have to monitor the result properly, whether it's giving you correct results, what are the appropriate procedures, and whether they give reasonable assurance, right? Now documentation. What will you document? Now documentation is divided into two parts: documentation by the auditor and documentation by the quality control reviewer. For documentation by the auditor, you will check the normal parts. That is there any ethical conflicts where you have to consider acceptance and continuance of client relationships, that is, you stay in the audit or you withdraw from the engagement. So ethical conflicts. Then for the quality control reviewer who has been appointed, there you will check PCM, physics chemistry maths, जैसे 12th में होता है ना CET के लिए. So what will the quality control reviewer check? The procedures for the audit engagement, procedures P, physics chemistry maths P. Then C is consultations, and M is matters which he is not aware of. Okay, so he will have to document the same because he is not responsible, right? So he will see that these are the matters I am not aware of. So documentation into two parts: by the auditor, by the quality control reviewer. By the auditor, you have again ethical conflicts, as I mentioned, acceptance and continuance of client relationships. Then for the quality control reviewer, PCM, P is procedure, C is consultation, M is matters which you are not aware of. Don't worry, at the comment of the video, I'll be explaining the mnemonics as with the explanation in as short as possible, because it's a one day before the exam revision lecture. It's not an explanatory lecture. Okay, now we move on to SA230 audit documentation. What do we mean by audit documentation? To understand, every auditor has working papers. That is the rough work which he does. Those working papers, he is not bound to disclose it to the client. That is for his reference, because sometimes he may give an unfavorable opinion, right? He doesn't want the client to know that. So those are the working papers which the auditor is legally bound to keep with himself and not disclose. Okay, so audit documentation को भी कैसे याद करो? You all make this mnemonic called FDMA. Like you documented the happiest moment of your life when you became a CA. You got your first salary. You made an FD, right? और वो FD तुमने तुम्हारी माँ को दे दिया. So FDMA, FD माँ को gift कर दिया. The happiest moment of your life. In case someone just calls me between the video, I mean, I'll just have to interrupt you like for a minute or something. Like if my student gives me a call, or I mean, always make it clear so that my students don't feel I've left the video in between. Barely for 30 seconds or a minute. Okay, so SA230 is audit documentation. FDMA, FD बना के माँ को gift कर दिया. What is F? Form, content and extent of audit documentation. D is departure from relevant requirement. M is matters arising after the date of the audit report, and A is assembly in the final audit file. So form, content and extent of audit documentation को कैसे याद करो? I'll tell you. RS. R is results, okay, and S is significant matters. So that is what you consider. Okay, form, content and extent. Now departure from the relevant requirement. If there is a departure in these exceptional circumstances, the auditor should document reasons for the same. Why there is a departure from the standard on auditing, and why there is this deviation. These are important words. Please use the same words in the exam in the shortest possible way for the case studies which the institutes will give you. Okay, so form, content and extent, departure from relevant requirement. Matters arising after the date of the audit report. So again, the auditor will have to document them, that these are the matters which have arisen after the date of the audit report, or conditions which were existing on the date of the balance sheet, as you must have studied in accounts also in the accounting standards. And the last A is assembly in the final audit file, FDMA. Assembly in the final audit file means that after the audit is completed, the auditor will have to, it's an administrative process where he has to maintain an audit file, and in that audit file, he has to retain. That means the documentation has to be retained. You can't delete the documentation before the specified period. So it's a final audit file which you will maintain after the audit report is completed. Now, two important factors which you have to keep for this answer of audit documentation: who performed the work, who reviewed the work, the date of completion of the work, and the date of completion of review. Who performed the work and review. Who performed the work, when was the work completed, who reviewed the work, and the date of review of such work. Okay, YouTube gives me a 15-minute limitation, as I mentioned earlier. So the next two standards will come in my next video. And of course, I'll give a comment explaining the mnemonics and expression to the same. Please mention your doubts in a comment, and I will resolve them as and when I get time. Thank you so much for watching. Cheers.